So how's everybody's New Year resolutions going? I would like to tell you about mine, but number one, it's December while I'm recording this, so I don't know. And number two, I don't do New Year's resolutions. I can be mentally unstable and do a stupid decision all 365 days of the year. Do you know what this is? That is my animated starting soon screen. Do you know what it's missing? Music. It's missing music. Of course, you could now say, oh, just use music on Spotify. And to be honest, for the rest of my stream, I'm using music from Spotify. But I decided, no, I'm gonna do my own starting soon music because why not? So I opened Cakewalk because a different VTuber made a video suggesting it. Been a long time, so I don't know who did it. I'm gonna go try and find them. And so editor me, please do your thing. But anyway, I opened Cakewalk. I first did some dabble, so I know what button does what. And then I started with 2 chords. I don't know what those chords are because I don't have it in front of me, and I am stupid. I can't read sheet notes, and I also can't read notes in general. So editor me, do your thing again. Put on screen what chords those are, because I'm lazy. I'm currently lazy. I don't want to look that up. Anyway, then I did some listening. I listened to some music, and I was just like, okay, but what do I actually want to do? I'm like, okay, what music do I want to produce? And I'm like, I kind of want to do nostalgia, but I don't want to do Minecraft childhood nostalgia because I'm probably gonna end up crying myself to sleep at some point if I do that. So we're gonna go with the old Overwatch soundtrack. And I'm like, okay, which one of those 2 chords that I randomly selected do I actually like and do I think actually fits in this? And I chose one chord. Editor me, do your thing. If you've made it this far, which to be honest, if my YouTube stats are true, most of you didn't, you might have noticed a difference between this video and the animated starting soon screen video. That is because of 2 reasons. Number 1, scripting. The last video was heavily scripted, and I am currently experimenting with my video style. This video is also scripted, but halfway through the segments I go off script because in that moment of recording, what is written in a script no longer supports what I want to say and how I want to say it. And second reason is knowledge. I kind of knew what I was doing in the last video, even though it was the first time that I was doing it. I knew if I wanted to have an animated video or generally an animation, I need to make the artwork in layers and I have to be specific what goes on what layer. And I knew that I needed to somehow work with keyframes and mesh in Live 2D, even though granted I have never done that before, but I have seen people doing it. For this video I have no knowledge of writing music. The only credentials that I have are my 10 years of choir kid experience that can tell me if something sounds good or not, but not how to write it, which is why listening to my target music is so important. So I could see if I could spot patterns, and I did actually come up with one rule. Don't introduce everything at once. This rule not only applies to the intro of the song, but also to any given time in the song if a change of notes, for example, is introduced. While thinking of how I was going to make this video, I did actually record almost everything that I did in Cakewalk. I say almost everything because I occasionally forgot to hit the record button, and so it was parts are lost. But I think I'm going to scrap that idea and instead I'm going to go through the segments of the song and just not really explain, because I don't have the knowledge to explain music to you, but to show you what I did and to show you how the don't introduce everything at once rule comes into place. Did I just record this without putting in the audio source? Yeah, okay, I lied. I mean, I didn't lie entirely because I did record it again, but I now decided I was going to kind of do this live. So instead of just doing a screen recording of the entire music and then doing a voiceover, I'm going to do both at the same time. Also, if you hear me scrolling, it's me scrolling through the notes I took, because I did take notes, because I can't memorize, for example, chord progressions. I can look at them, but just by looking at them, I don't automatically know what they are. So yeah. First of all, explaining over here, the left side, I did kind of make a setup like an orchestra. So for example, naming a second violin section and naming a first violin section. If you don't know orchestra, essentially the first, anything that has first in front of it has the main melody, while second and third kind of have the back melodies. And I wouldn't say aren't as important, because they are important, because back melodies are very important, because else the song wouldn't work, but they just aren't in the spotlight as the first violin section is. Essentially, the best way I can explain it is the first violin is kind of like, they are like the soloists, and the second or third, depending on how many there are the choir. So we have, or I did 2 violin sections. Somebody noted that I showed the song to. They noted that you could probably not play these. These are not playable. I don't know. I haven't checked if they're playable, but I don't think they are. So if anybody, and I hope nobody tries to play this, but if anybody tries to play this, my condolences. I don't think it's playable. And we have, in addition to that, we have a French horn. The French horn works with the first violin. You'll see that a little bit later. You can kind of see it over here. And then we have a third violin section, and we have the sort of pizzicato. I'm probably going to mispronounce it. I'm just going to call it the cello. Also, I did kind of try to make my mouse cursor bigger, but OBS is a bitch, and it doesn't show up, so I'm sorry. If I kind of want to show one specific thing, I'm either going to zoom in, or I'm going to do like a pointer or something like that. I'm going to do the first obvious ones, which are the cellos and the third violin. As you can see over here, the cellos have a beat, a single beat. It's over here. Which one is that? I don't know which one that is. That's D1. And they do that on every bar. At the beginning of every bar, they do that. And they do that until the end of the song. And the third violin does a continuous note that is also a D1, and they basically do that through the entire song. And then the third violin kind of ends here because it's loopable. I specifically made it so that it's loopable, and to get back in, or to basically keep the momentum, the cello kind of is there the entire time, and the third violin is also there the entire time, with an exception of the first 4 bars. So if we would mute everything else and play this, so if we play this, because I'm an idiot and I forgot to connect the audio source, but don't worry, I wasn't like recording. I almost noticed it instantly, because I was just like, is OBS picking this up? I don't want to retake everything. But yes, if we listen to those 2 for a second, we have the cello, and then we have the third violin. And they basically do that in the entire song. And if I'm correct, this is what the third violin is doing, is a drone. I believe that's the correct word for it. If we look over here, I kind of eased it in. These are the audio levels, which I tried to kind of do some audio leveling. I don't know if it's good. I don't think it's shit, but I don't think it's also good. To not have this kind of drone coming in instantly, we have kind of it just picking up. It stays at around -7.9 to not overpower the whole entire rest of the melodies. For the rest, I will be kind of explaining them as they come in. So we have the second violin first starting off. When you look at this is what I mean with if you can't play it, because I don't think you can. So we have a D2 minor, a B2 major, an F2 major, and a C3 major. So this is D, this is B, this is over here F, and this is C. Is that really C3? That's C3. Excuse me, I gotta that's G, that's I think I changed it. Where's C3? So there's C3. Okay, yeah, that's a C3. C3 is a hard number. Anyway, so then we just quickly go ahead and listen to that. So yeah, they always have a bar between them that is just silence, and that stays until over here, which is bar 20. The chords then stay the same. They just don't have this bar in between that is silent. And that is also a very good segue to be showing you the rule of don't introduce everything at once. Because if you, I mean, they're currently still muted, but if you look over here, you have the first violins. So you have the second violins, first of all, introducing themselves. They stay then the same. And while the second violin kind of repeats what they just did, you have the first violins coming in, and then once the first violins kind of repeated themselves, the second violin then changes, because we then already know, kind of familiar with the melodies, and then we have the French horns kind of echoing the first violin section. So the French horns aren't new because we know the melody, it's just with a different instrument. So if we now look at what the first violins are doing, I need to check what they are playing. So the first violins are playing A3 for 2 beats, F4 for 1 beat, A4 for 1 beat, rest 4 beats. So rest a bar. Technically, I need to see if it's an entire bar or if it's in the middle of bars. D5 hold for 2, A4 hold for 1.5. Let me look over here. We have, this is A3, F4, D5, D5. I have A4. Anyway, it's not D5. Apparently, I wrote that down wrong. So D5, and then we have A4 and D5. So ignore what I said. And that just gets repeated, so that this is the same as this. And the main reason why I didn't do this D5 for longer or shorter is simply because it didn't sound right to me. For example, if I do this longer, that sounds way too long for me, and if we do it short, that sounds too short, so I needed a good in-between. And that's the in-between. That I decided for. So I know that somewhere here the first violin doesn't necessarily change. The notes don't change, but the numbers change. So they move up an entire, what's it called? By entire octave, I believe. Is that here or is that the same? Okay, so this should be the one. Yeah. So it moves up. The first violin moves up when the second repeat of the French horns comes in. So we have the French horns coming in over here. They echo, they have the same notes as the first violin. So when we go over here and we have them play side by side. They have the same notes. And now over here, it kind of changes because the first violin moves up an entire octave, but the French horn stays in the same octave that it was before. As you could hear, it changed over here. That's simply because I had these kind of looping the entire time, but they were getting too repetitive, and I was just like, I need to change something. It doesn't have to be big, it just has to be like 1 or 2 notes. And so I changed the high notes, which the high notes were, I believe they were D5. Yeah, so in first violin, they are D6. In the French one, it's D5. And they changed to Fs. So F6 and F5. And the same thing should be on the last one, yeah. And the French one obviously still mirrors the first violin, just lower, so they also changed to Fs. And now we have another change in the first violin section, French horn. I'm probably going to just call it the first violin section, even though it includes the French horn, just simply because the French horn mirrors the first violin section. And if we look over here, all of the other ones are still the same. So the second violin does the chord progression it did before, and obviously the are a drone, so the third violin, and cellos still do their thing. And if we look over into here, we have, if I can see it, we have a D5, an F5, a G5, an A. I'm just going to stop naming the numbers. An A sharp, going back to A, F, G, F, E, D. Then the D obviously starts again. The same thing in the French section, just lower. And these two repeat until here, because I do the same thing I did over here, where I took the highest note and I moved it up, so that instead of being in A sharp, I believe, yeah, in A sharp, it is now 86. Wait, no, that's the wrong note, sorry. It was not the highest note. But I moved 1 note up. That was the F5, sorry, the F5 to, or generally the F to a D. If we play those two after each other. Repeat, and then after repeat, change. And then repeat the change, and back to default. And they play, and they keep playing, because if you look over here on this bar, which bar is that? I don't know which bar that is bar 44. We have a change in the second violins. I will talk about that in a second. I will finish up the first violin section. So it loops, and it doesn't like do changes simply because the second violin just changed, and we don't want to introduce everything at once or change everything at once. And to kind of move out of the song, so we are slowly at the end of the song. Over here, this is where the repeat starts again. We have the French horn not doing the repeat, so not doing double, but coming in for the change, but not doing the double of the change. That is also simply because it sounded good, because if I first didn't have this change of the French horn, and it didn't sound that good, so I decided I should probably have the French horn at least play 1 on the change. So if we kind of move out. And then we have an entire change, because we moved out of a lot of notes into 4 easy notes. They are F, D, another F, and a C. And you heard it kind of with the audio. It does kind of, I tried to fade it out over here. So we do have a fade out. And it is with the exception of the drone and the cellos, it's the only thing that is playing. Now going back to the last notes of the second violin that got repeated. Could you mute that? So that's still where the first valence section repeats. That's also the reason why it repeats. So if we look at these two, they are kind of similar, but not entirely. So we have the first and the second chords that are the same, and in between we kind of steal notes from these two, from the other two chords. So we have the first chord, which was a D2 minor, so the D2 minor chord stays. That's the first one. I lied. That's in deception. So that's the only chord that actually stays, as this chord is no longer in our beginning chords that we had. That is a G, and I believe that should be a G minor. If that's a D minor, then that should be a G minor. Yep, that's a G minor. And in between this D and G minor, we have an A sharp and a C. If we listen, so I will quickly play the chords that we had, and then we go into the new ones. And that basically loops until the end. So if we listen to the entire song all together now, let me demute everything. It sounds like this. And that is the finished song, which I did a terrible job of explaining. I would like to say, if you have questions, ask me, but please don't. I don't know. I was on some stuff when I wrote this. Okay, no, I was not. I was not on some stuff. I was just mentally in a different world. I don't know what happened. I unlocked the flow mode and I wrote this, and I'm not the best thing in the world, but I'm still proud of it because it's the first thing I wrote. It's not entirely shit, so yeah, I love it. Probably a little bit more into the epic music side. Probably for stream starting soon music, it's probably not the most ideal. But you know what? I don't care. It's a song that Dream gets. If you're still listening to this, I genuinely gotta ask, what are you still doing here? This video is, at this point, 24 hours, not 24 hours, minutes, 24 minutes long. It might as well be 24 hours, honestly. Do we need to be concerned that you're still here? Because this video wasn't really informative, I'm gonna be honest. I mean, that's kind of also my fault, because I could have made it more informative. But yeah, I think we ought to be concerned for you. Also, just FYI, people, we have a Discord. I've been told I need to promote that. It's both for English and German, so we do have also German chat. We also have study. We also have a study chat, and I'm probably gonna make study rooms and stuff like that. I still need to do that, but the Discord is currently also kind of still under construction again, or under renovation, because it's technically already done. It's been done for a very long time. I just haven't promoted it. But yeah, it's evolving. You should maybe, I don't know, join or something like that. I'm gonna sign off here, so we can bye, people, bye.